Ladies, let's be honest, we've all been there, staring at our phones, rereading his messages 100 times, trying to decode every emoji, every punctuation mark, every delay between responses. Does "hey you" mean he's thinking about me? Is haha a sign of attraction or just politeness? And what about that text he sent at midnight? Does he like me or is he just bored? We analyze, we overthink, we screenshot and send it to our best friend like, girl, what does this mean? But here's the truth. Men are not as complicated as we make them out to be. The way they text tells us everything we need to know about how they feel. It's just a matter of knowing what to look for. So today I'm going to break it all down for you. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to read a man's mind through his texting habits. And more importantly, you'll stop wasting time on men who keep you guessing. Frequency reveals interest. One of the simplest yet most telling ways to understand a man's level of interest is through the frequency of his texts. Women often spend hours dissecting the content of a message, what he said, how he phrased it, whether or not he used an emoji. But in reality, the biggest clue lies in how often he reaches out. Because here's the truth. When a man is truly interested in you, you won't have to wonder. His actions will tell you everything you need to know. Think about it this way. When you're excited about something, whether it's a new job opportunity, a fun event, or even just a show you're obsessed with, what do? You talk about it. You bring it up. You don't forget about it for days at a time. Now apply that same logic to a man who is genuinely interested in you. If he likes you, if he's thinking about you, if he wants to build something with you, texting you will feel natural to him. He won't have to be reminded, nudged, or chased. Too many women get stuck in a cycle of making excuses for inconsistent men. Maybe he's just really busy, they say. Maybe he's not a big texter. But here's what you need to remember. No man is too busy to text someone he genuinely wants to talk to. We live in an age where our phones are practically glued to our hands. A man who is into you doesn't suddenly forget that he has the ability to send a message. If he's not texting you consistently, it's because you're not at the forefront of his mind. Now, let's break this down even further. What does consistent texting actually look like? It doesn't necessarily mean he's messaging you every 5 minutes. It doesn't mean you need to be in constant conversation throughout the day. What it does mean is that there's a steady rhythm, an intentional effort to connect. Maybe he texts you in the morning just to say good morning. Maybe he checks in throughout the day, or he follows up on something you mentioned earlier. Maybe he doesn't let more than a day or two go by without reaching out. On the flip side, when a man's texting is all over the place, one day he's super engaged and the next he disappears, it's a red flag. This kind of behavior is often a sign that he's keeping his options open, that he's not fully invested, or that he's only reaching out when it's convenient for him. This is where many women fall into the trap of overanalyzing. He texts a lot one day, so she feels hopeful. Then he pulls back and she starts questioning what she did wrong. But in reality, this pattern isn't a reflection of anything you did. It's a reflection of where he stands emotionally. One of the most powerful shifts you can make in dating is to stop making excuses for inconsistency. If a man is texting you sporadically, if he's disappearing and reappearing without explanation, if he's not putting in the effort to communicate regularly, then he's showing you that he's not as invested as you are. And that's okay. The problem isn't that he's not texting enough. The problem is when you convince yourself that it's acceptable behavior when you know deep down that it's leaving you feeling insecure and unappreciated. Here's the thing. When a man truly values you, he will prioritize making you feel wanted. And part of that is ensuring that you don't have to wonder whether or not he's interested. You won't be left in limbo, checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if he's responded. Instead, you'll feel secure in the connection because he will have made it clear through his consistency that he genuinely wants to talk to you. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes women make when dealing with inconsistent texting. They compensate for his lack of effort by putting in more effort themselves. If he's not texting, they take it upon themselves to initiate all the conversations. If he disappears for a few days, they reach out to check in. If he's only giving them breadcrumbs of attention, they cling to those breadcrumbs and convince themselves that it's enough. But let me tell you something. You should never have to work this hard to get a man to show up for you. When a man is serious about you, you won't feel like you have to chase him. You won't feel like you're constantly reminding him to engage with you. His texting habits will reflect his interest, and you will feel that interest through the consistency of his messages. He won't just text when it's convenient or when he's bored or when he wants attention. He'll text because he genuinely enjoys talking to you and wants to build a connection. Now, let's address a common argument. What if he's just not a big texter? Sure, not every man loves texting, but even men who aren't naturally chatty will still make an effort if they like someone. Maybe they'll call instead. Maybe they'll send shorter texts, but they'll be regular and meaningful. Maybe they'll be more action-oriented and plan dates rather than having long texting conversations. The key isn't whether or not he texts you paragraphs. The key is whether or not he communicates with you in a way that makes you feel prioritized. So how do you respond to a man whose texting is inconsistent? Here's the secret. Match his energy. If he's texting you every day, great, respond and engage. But if he's only texting you sporadically, don't chase, don't send follow-ups, don't try to force a conversation. Instead, take a step back and see what happens. If he notices the distance and starts making more of an effort, then he might have just needed a little nudge. But if he doesn't step up, that's your answer. He wasn't really invested in the first place. One of the biggest power moves you can make in dating is refusing to engage in one-sided effort. If a man isn't texting consistently, let him show you who he really is, instead of trying to convince him to be different. Because at the end of the day, the man who is meant for you will never leave you questioning where you stand. So ladies, the next time you find yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a text that may never come, I want you to ask yourself, do I really want to be with someone who makes me feel this way? Or do I want to be with someone who is so consistent that I never have to wonder? Because trust me, the right man won't leave you guessing. Speed shows excitement, ladies. Let's talk about something we've all experienced, waiting. You send a message, and then the clock starts ticking. 5 minutes go by, then 10, then an hour. Maybe you see the dreaded typing appear for a second, and then nothing. Suddenly you're in full detective mode, analyzing every possible reason for the delay. Is he busy? Did I say something wrong? Should I send another message? We've all been there. But here's the truth. You don't need to overanalyze a man's texts. His response time alone tells you everything you need to know. Let's break it down. When a man is excited about you, he's going to respond quickly. Why? Because when we like someone, we want to talk to them. It's human nature. Think about it. If your best friend texts you with exciting news, you don't leave her on read for 6 hours. You respond because you genuinely want to. Now, let's apply that same logic to a man you're interested in. If he's enthusiastic about you, if he's excited to build something with you, he's not going to leave you hanging for no reason. He's going to want to keep the momentum going. Of course, life happens. People get busy, work, meetings, gym sessions, and even just needing a moment away from their phone are all valid reasons for a delayed response. But here's where it gets interesting. When a man is genuinely interested, he finds a way to let you know. Maybe he can't respond right away, but he'll send a quick message letting you know he'll get back to you later. Maybe he's in the middle of something, but the second he's free, he'll check his phone and make sure you're not left waiting too long. The point is, he's aware of his communication and cares about keeping the connection going. But what about the men who consistently take hours or worse, days to reply? Here's where a lot of women make mistakes. Instead of accepting the reality of his behavior, they start making excuses. Maybe he's just not a texter. Maybe he's really busy. Maybe he saw it and forgot to respond. Let's be clear. A man who is interested doesn't forget to text you back. Think about this. How often do you forget to respond to someone you really want to talk to? Probably never, because when you like someone, their messages feel like a priority, not a chore. A man who likes you will want to keep the conversation flowing. He won't be leaving you on red for hours, scrolling on Instagram, watching stories, or posting on social media while your message sits there unanswered. Now, let's talk about mixed signals. Sometimes a guy will start off texting fast and frequently in the beginning, but then something shifts. His response time slows down and the energy changes. What does this mean? If it happens gradually, he might be losing interest. Sometimes men start off strong because they're excited by the chase, but once that initial rush wears off, their effort drops. This is where a lot of women try to compensate by texting more, initiating more, and filling in the gaps he's leaving. But ladies, if a man is pulling back, don't chase, observe. Let him show you his true level of investment without you trying to fix it. If his responses are still engaging but slower, he might just be settling into a comfortable rhythm. Not every man will keep up the same texting pace forever. But if he's still showing interest in other ways, planning dates, asking about your day, being engaged in conversation, then it's not a red flag. However, if his energy is fading overall, that's something to pay attention to. Now, here's another trap women fall into. They start testing him. They think, okay, if I take longer to respond, maybe he'll see how it feels. Maybe he'll miss me more and text me faster next time. But let me ask you this. Do you really want to be in a situation where you have to play mind games to get a man to text you? The right man doesn't need to be manipulated into prioritizing you. He does it because he wants to. So how should you respond when a man is taking too long to text back? Match his energy. If he's taking hours, you don't need to sit by your phone waiting anxiously. Go live your life, spend time with friends, focus on your passions, do things that bring you joy. When you're busy creating a fulfilling life, you're naturally less available for men who can't make up their minds about you. And when he does text back, pay attention to how you feel. Do you feel relieved, like you've been holding your breath waiting for him? Or do you feel secure and happy knowing that he's showing up consistently? Because, ladies, a man's texting speed isn't just about logistics. It's about emotional investment. A man who texts back quickly and consistently is showing excitement. He's showing you that he's engaged and interested. A man who is slow, inconsistent, or hot and cold, he's showing you that you're an option, not a priority. And let me leave you with this. You don't have to convince the right man to text you. You don't have to overthink his response time, wonder if he's too busy, or strategize ways to make him miss you. The right man will show up every time without you having to chase him. So the next time you find yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a text that's taking too long, I want you to shift your mindset. Instead of wondering what you did wrong, ask yourself, is this the kind of energy I want in my life? Because the right man won't leave you waiting. He'll be excited to talk to you. And when a man is excited about you, you'll never have to question it. Content exposes intentions when it comes to understanding a man's true intentions. The content of his text speaks volumes. Too often, women get caught up in the quantity of messages rather than the quality. They think, well, he texts me every day, so that must mean he's interested, right? But the reality is consistency without depth doesn't necessarily indicate genuine investment. What he's saying, the effort he's putting into the conversation, and the topics he chooses to bring up are what truly reveal his level of interest and his long-term intentions. Let's start with how he engages in conversation. A man who is genuinely interested in getting to know you will ask questions, real, thoughtful questions that go beyond surface-level small talk. He won't just say, "How was your day?" and then respond with a generic, "Nice when you answer. Instead, he'll engage. If you tell him you had a stressful day at work, he won't just acknowledge it. He'll follow up with, "What happened?" or "That sounds rough. How are you feeling now?" A man who is truly interested in you is going to remember the things you share with him. If you mention that you have a big presentation on Friday, he'll text on Friday to ask how it went. If you talk about your favorite coffee shop, he might suggest meeting there. These little details show that he is mentally and emotionally invested in you. On the other hand, if a man's texts are consistently vague, uninspired, or purely transactional, it's a sign that he's either not serious or not emotionally available. Some men text just to keep the connection alive without actually deepening it. They'll send a casual, "Hey, what's up?" every now and then, just enough to stay on your radar, but not enough to make you feel truly pursued. These are the men who enjoy the validation of knowing you're still interested in them, but they have no real intention of taking things further. If his texts never go beyond small talk, generic compliments, or casual flirting, then he's likely just passing the time rather than genuinely building a connection. Then there are the men who only text when they want something. Maybe they're looking for attention, validation, or even just something physical. You'll notice that their messages follow a predictable pattern. They pop up at night when they're bored or when they want to make last-minute plans. They might disappear for days or even weeks and then suddenly resurface with a, "Hey, stranger," or "Been thinking about you." These messages are designed to reel you back in, just enough to keep you interested, but they lack any real depth or emotional investment. This kind of texting behavior is a clear indicator that he isn't looking for something serious. He's looking for convenience. A man's texting style also reveals how he views relationships and emotional intimacy. A man who is open, expressive, and consistent in his messages is usually someone who is emotionally available. He's not afraid to share his thoughts, his feelings, and his experiences with you. He texts not just to make conversation, but to build a connection. He's intentional about the words he uses and the way he interacts with you. He isn't just sending messages for the sake of it. He's using texting as a way to bring you closer. But a man who is emotionally unavailable will often keep his texts distant, short, or avoidant. He might dodge deeper conversations, avoid talking about feelings, or steer every interaction toward humor or distraction. If you bring up something personal or emotional, he might shut down or deflect with a joke. This kind of texting pattern suggests that he either isn't ready for emotional depth or isn't willing to go there with you. And if he's not willing to be emotionally available over text, chances are he won't be emotionally available in person either. Another key way to decode a man's intentions through his texts is to observe whether or not he makes an effort to move the connection beyond the phone. A man who is genuinely interested in you will use texting as a tool to set up real-life interactions. He won't just text for the sake of texting. He'll ask when you're free, suggest plans, and follow through. He's not just keeping the conversation going endlessly without direction. He's using it as a stepping stone to build something real. However, if a man is always texting but never making an effort to see you in person, that's a red flag. Some men use texting as a way to maintain a virtual connection without actually investing in the relationship. They'll keep the conversation going, they'll flirt, they'll make you feel wanted through their words, but they never take the next step. This often happens when a man enjoys your attention, but doesn't actually want a serious relationship. If you notice that the conversation is always staying in the digital realm, it's worth questioning whether he's truly invested or just enjoying the convenience of texting without commitment. It's also important to pay attention to how he responds when you express your own needs or feelings. If you bring up something that's bothering you, does he acknowledge it and respond with care? Or does he ignore it, change the subject, or make you feel like you're overreacting? A man's ability to have real, meaningful conversations over text is a good indicator of his emotional maturity and his willingness to show up for you in a relationship. If he only engages when things are fun and easy but disappears or gets defensive when a deeper conversation arises, that tells you everything you need to know about his level of emotional availability. Another revealing factor in a man's texting habits is whether he makes an effort to share his life with you. Does he voluntarily tell you about his day, his thoughts, his plans, and his feelings, or do you always have to pull information out of him? A man who sees you as someone special will naturally want to include you in his world. He won't just respond to your questions. He'll initiate conversations about what's going on in his life because he genuinely wants to share those moments with you. And finally, one of the most important things to look for in a man's texts is whether or not his words align with his actions. Some men are great at saying the right things but never following through. They'll send sweet messages, make big promises, and tell you how much they care, but when it comes time to back it up with real effort, they fall short. If a man's texts are full of affectionate words, but he's not showing up for you in real life, then his words are empty. Pay attention to whether his actions match his messages, because words are easy, but consistency and effort are what truly matter. At the end of the day, a man's texting habits reveal far more than we often realize. When a man is genuinely interested, his messages will have depth, consistency, and purpose. He will text to connect, not just to kill time. He will ask about your life, remember details, and show a genuine interest in who you are. He will use texting as a way to build something real, not as a tool for validation or convenience. And most importantly, he will make you feel secure in the connection rather than leaving you questioning his intentions. So the next time you find yourself analyzing a man's texts, take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Are his messages making you feel valued, respected, and appreciated? Or are they leaving you feeling confused, frustrated, or like you have to work for his attention? Because a man who is truly interested won't just send texts. He'll send clear signals that he's invested in you. And that is something you should never have to second guess. Effort equals emotional investment. When it comes to texting, effort is everything. A man's level of effort in his messages directly reflects his emotional investment in you. It's not just about how often he texts, it's about how he texts. The energy, thoughtfulness, and engagement he brings to your conversations are clear indicators of how much he values the connection. Think about a time when you were truly excited about someone. Did you wait hours to text back? Did you send half-hearted, one-word replies? Of course not. You put in the effort because you genuinely wanted to talk to that person. Men operate the same way. If he's interested, he'll show it. His messages will be more than just surface-level check-ins or dry responses. He'll engage in conversations that actually matter. He'll ask about your day, not because he feels obligated, but because he genuinely wants to know. He'll remember little things you've mentioned before and bring them up later, showing that he listens and values what you say. On the flip side, when a man's effort in texting starts to dwindle, it's often a sign that his emotional investment is fading. Maybe he used to send thoughtful messages, but now he only sends generic texts like "Hey" or "What's up?" Maybe he used to initiate conversations, but now he only replies when you reach out first. If you find yourself doing all the work just to keep the conversation alive, that's a red flag. Relationships, whether they're just beginning or already established, should never feel like a one-sided effort. Effort in texting isn't just about frequency, it's about consistency. A man who is truly invested in you won't text you non-stop for a few days and then disappear for a week. He won't go from sending sweet, detailed messages to giving you short, lazy responses overnight. Emotional investment isn't sporadic, it's steady. It doesn't mean he has to text you every minute of the day, but it does mean he keeps the connection alive with genuine effort, even when life gets busy. Another major sign of emotional investment is whether he texts with intention. Some men text just to pass the time, while others text with a purpose, to get to know you better, to deepen the connection, to make plans to see you in person. If a man is always texting but never making an effort to take things beyond the phone, that's not real investment. A man who is serious about you will make sure his words align with his actions. He won't just say he wants to see you, he'll actually plan a date. He won't just compliment you over text, he'll show appreciation for you in person. Pay attention to how he texts when things aren't easy. Does he make an effort to communicate when there's a disagreement, or does he go silent? Does he reassure you when you express a concern, or does he dismiss it? Effort isn't just about sending good morning texts and cute emojis. It's about showing up even in the moments that require emotional maturity and communication. At the end of the day, a man who is emotionally invested in you will want to put in the effort. You won't have to beg for his attention or overthink his messages. His actions through texting and beyond will make it clear that he values you. So if you're ever wondering where you stand with a man, stop looking at how often he texts and start looking at how much effort he puts into those messages. Because effort isn't just a sign of interest, it's a sign of emotional investment. Consistency is everything. The biggest sign of a man's true feelings? Consistency. One cute good morning text doesn't mean he's in love. Just like one slow response doesn't mean he's losing interest. It's the pattern over time that tells the real story. If he's showing up every day, making you feel secure and putting in consistent effort, then he's serious about you. But